Hey, so right now I'll be watching YATAGARASU. The Raven does not choose his master, also known as The Crow does not choose the Lord, episode 3. And really quick before I get into the episode, I just wanted to mention a few of the characters that this series title reminded me of. The first being Raven from the animated series Teen Titans, the Raven from the manga and anime film series The Cat Returns, the Raven Spirit Guide from the animated Balto film series, and Little Crow from the animated film Franklin and the Turtle Lake Treasure. Now having said all that, onto the episode. Well, it sounds like it's a calamity more than something good. Yeah. Could this also be part jealousy on his part? Like, it might seem his concern is like, why is the Kinu a bad thing, but also it's kind of like he wants to be it, so... He's like, I want to be the bad thing. Yeah, I would be like, why? One from the well, one from the waterfall. Oh. Damn, that's a lot of different places to get water. That's quite a bit to do on your first day. Damn. You trying to test him to see if he'll leave or not? Even he's like, are you sure? Oh. He's already super annoyed. Damn. Oh. Oh, that too? Whoa, okay. Oh, he's taking the easy route out. Well, at least he's listening to the instructions. Oh. Well, I mean, you have a teacher, don't you? So, kinda urgent. Haha, his crow form. Uncivil? Do you not see the sash? Mm-hmm. How quickly they change. Oh, I imagine he's gonna be judged for that in here. Or maybe not. It's a good thing he's got 3 legs. Oh my god, he does visit the red light district. He's alone. Is he wearing his own feather robe? And how did you do that? What assignment was it again? Oh, he gave him something to eat. Oh, I thought he just had it in his sleeve. He has a bag of it. Okay. Was that it? He got you out of your room for that? Well, by the looks of it, he won't last much longer. Yeah, he did. Oh, he wants to help out his own clan. He's golden. Wow.
名君と言われた先代もしかり、我々と見かけこそ変わらないが、その実全くある文献によればいかなる変身を可能にする。その姿は大きく条件を備えて生まれてくる。
誰か見た人いるんですか？
He's like, I'm not impressed.
数十年に一度のこと。
そもそも宗家には長男がいます。
あの方が皇太子になることの金羽と認められ、
He outranked him.
夏香様の立場は一変した。それでも聡明な夏香様にくすぶり続けてきたの。ここへ来て若宮の悪評に煽られる形。
に貴族の権力闘争ってやつでしょ。だの誰が聡明だの。つけっつうか。でもまあ、ただのわがままなヤタガラス。
That's quite a statement.
声が大きい。様の企んでいるという噂があるのだ。
Yeah, I expected that.
何も起きなければいい。
しぶとい小僧ですな。だけのことは
What?
どう使うおつもりで。
少尉ははい。午前。
Oh. The princesses.
雨で勝負が見事ですわ。あまりにあっという間で。です。今日も
That you miss, have you ever seen him or met him? Yeah. How can you miss somebody you never met? Cousins? Well, okay, you know, that isn't surprising considering royal lineage types usually do try to stay in the family. Oh, is this what he does every day? He's trying to see their true characters? Oh. Damn, is that why he hasn't visited them at all? Damn. What? Whoa. Oh, all this way he's gonna push him, like in the trailer. Dang. His wave! Oh yeah? Why didn't he fly away before he hit the water? So there are female ravens. Damn. You're pretty rough with him. Didn't she have a headache? What's the issue? The other women changed into the ravens? Ah. Well, it is pretty amusing. Neither do you. You're his cousin also, so. Sumio? What? You could have done that sooner. Stuck there? Yeah, every single day. Well, they cause strife among themselves anyways. Oh, okay, it's from the princess. I was afraid it was from the empress. It'd be funny though if she tried that and then she had her eyes really puffy and it turns out she's allergic to them. You see, I'm not the only one who thought that. But they're so pretty. Whoa. Oh my god. Whoa. Damn, that's dangerous. Oh, well, she can change too. Oh. Oh. Oh, I thought he was telling him to start wearing his official clothes instead of his feather robe. Huh. Like Oku, the inner chambers. So in this episode, we finally got to see and interact with the prince. Sure, we saw him in the last episode for like the last 10 seconds, but in this episode, we got to see a little bit more of his personality. Even though he wasn't necessarily in it for the whole duration of the episode, he was still in it enough to see how he is. It's clear that at the very least, in the beginning, he seems to be a very demanding boss, and maybe it's due to the fact that he only wants capable people, and not people who just want to ride his coattails to gain a higher status. And that's why he gave Yukiya so many tasks to do, because he wanted to see if he was capable of doing the job. And right off the bat, he did seemingly try to do things by the book, but he just found it much easier to disobey the advice that man had given him, and he almost immediately changed his clothes from his official clothes to his feather robes, and instead of walking to the falls, which is what I'm assuming the prince wanted him to do, he ended up flying back and forth. And I'm assuming maybe that's part of the reason as to why the plants in the blue pots were dying, because he flew there instead of walked, or this could somehow be a test in and of itself of what's he gonna do now that it seems that some of the plants that he's taking care of are dying. Or I could be wrong and maybe there's another reason. And it does seem like the prince doesn't necessarily do much, because according to Yukiya, he leaves for multiple days at a time, and when he is there, he doesn't really do much. And he even dismissed the homework that his own teacher left him. So he's really living up to the whole reputation of being irresponsible. And him being seen as that, and also seeming to actually be irresponsible, it really reminds me of the Emperor from the story of Saionkoku. Since in the beginning, whenever you hear any stories about the Emperor, it's always the same, which is he's lazy, he's irresponsible, all he does is spend his time hanging around men. He isn't seen in a very favorable light. He's seen as incompetent to rule, yet he's the one who's gonna rule. And it isn't until Shure comes into his life that he finally changes his ways and starts to become a very competent emperor. He was always capable of doing his job, but he always held out the hope that his older brother, who went missing years ago, would one day come back and take his rightful place as emperor. So he didn't feel that it was right for him to try to do an excellent job if his brother was going to come back one day, and then there would be factions fighting for who they really wanted to be emperor if both of them are extremely competent in doing their job. So he made himself seem as incompetent as possible, so that if and when his brother came back, it would be a unanimous decision that his older brother would be the emperor. And although likely it isn't the case for the current Crown Prince and his older brother, but it is the case for that emperor, So maybe in this sense is what's going to happen between Yukiya and the prince. With Yukiya now being there and both of them having drastically different personalities, maybe he will drive the prince to finally seemingly step up more into his role, and vice versa, the prince will seemingly push Yukiya to follow the rules more and be more formal. Because at the very least, he understands the importance of him having to wear his official clothing, at least at some points, because he gave Yukiya back his old clothes when they were going to go to the Purple Hall. So I'm assuming he knew that if he allowed Yukiya to enter into the Purple Hall wearing his feather robes, it would probably be adding more fuel to the fire for his opposing faction to have yet another reason as to why he isn't fit to rule. Since seemingly they're still plotting against him, even though he's literally the one true Kinu and the Crown Prince. And I'm glad to see that my question was finally answered, which is, are there such a thing as female ravens? And yes, there are. And actually one thing that I liked about this is the fact that the guards there weren't men, they were women. And they seem very capable and actually very aggressive in their ways of tackling Yukiya and making him submit. But this could also be similar as to how in the Apothecary Diaries, they have these male servants known as eunuchs, being the only men allowed inside the inner palace, due to the fact that since they're castrated, they cannot impregnate any of the consorts in there, and this would ensure that any kid born from the consorts is the emperor's child. So in this sense, I'm assuming that either it could be a sort of hierarchy thing in birds specifically, where maybe with ravens or crows, the females are the one in charge and the males are the more submissive ones, or it could be the simple reasoning of using female ravens makes it so that we don't have to castrate our males and worry about them getting pregnant because these are females. And as for the contractual bondage that a lot of the horse ravens are under, reminds me of two specific things. The first being the curse mark that the branch families from the Hyuga clan have, which is every single member who isn't a part of the main family, as far as I know, has this brand on their foreheads that literally make them submit to the main family. So if any one of them were to try to injure or kill one of the members from the main family, all they have to do is give a simple hand sign, and immediately they're under an extreme amount of pain and are unable to carry out anything. And the only way they can actually free themselves from this curse is through death. And there really is no other reason to do this other than the fact that they're just not part of the main family. And also because of the ongoing fear of there being factions that are going to be going against them, and there's another way for them to make sure there are no attempts on their lives from their own family. Now my second example is Tomoe from the manga and anime series Kami-sama Kiss. Since in that series, from what was said, whenever gods end up getting a familiar, they seal the contract with a kiss. And once these yokai have officially become this god's servants, they are bound to them forever, and they cannot leave them even if they wanted to. The god would have to break the contract themselves. And specifically in Tomoe's case, since he used to be a fox yokai specifically, when he first became Mikage's servant, his appearance drastically changed, he ended up getting short hair, and he didn't seem as wild as before. And the same goes for when he becomes Nanami's familiar. Although his appearance hasn't changed since he first became Mikage's, and when Tomoe is under servitude of a god, both his wild tendencies and his powers are greatly inhibited. But we see that later on, when the god Daikokuten mallet is used on him, he's able to easily take care of a god whom he had a lot of trouble dealing with when he was in his familiar form. We see just how greatly the contract binds his powers. Because he treated that god like he was nothing. It was so easy for him to deal with him. And also the fact that whenever he reverts back to his original yokai form, his appearance changes to what it once was before, which is he had long hair again, he looks much more wild, personally to me much more handsome, because he had long hair again. This means that he's no longer under contract, and he has to have the contract reinstated. Though these Ravens contracts are pretty sad as well, considering the fact that apparently these people couldn't make it either due to poverty or just not being able to sustain themselves at all, and in order to make a living for themselves, they end up being these servants in the Raven forms, and are even made fun of for that. And not only just that, but they're literally being exploited and taken advantage of by their employers and literally cannot transform back into their human forms because they're under their contract. It would be one thing if they had to be in their crow forms during work hours and then at night they could change back into their human forms, but the fact that they became so desperate and they decided to be these kind of servants knowing that they would be made fun of, but knowing that they had no other way of living, that really sucks. And also, I know that back in the day, there wasn't TV or smartphones or anything. And I know a lot of people's pastime was just being outside and watching things happen.
It was 1965. My family was wealthy, so I spent my days doing what all rich girls like to do in 1965. Sit under a parasol and stare at things for a long time. It was nice to be rich.
But just how the consort seemed to appear in that scene, just sitting down, looking out at the flowers and the water, it seemed pretty boring to me. I was thinking, damn, this is a pretty boring kind of existence for them, isn't it? I mean, sure, some of them may enjoy it, but to do this every single day and hoping that the prince, who seemingly has a lot of time to visit the red light district a lot, has yet to come visit them, that really does seem like a very mundane kind of existence where they're just sitting there waiting all this time. And also, as strange as it might seem that one of the prince's very own cousins is a possible candidate to become his future bride, historically speaking, that isn't necessarily strange. It doesn't make it right, but typically it is a very common practice, where I believe as recently as Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip were no exception to this. Since lineage-wise, they both shared Queen Victoria as a great-great-grandmother. And I believe the main reason for this is because a lot of royal families, they didn't want their family specifically to lose power. So they figured that by having their children marry their cousin, their second cousin, or any kind of family member like that, even half siblings if you're considering ancient Egypt, this would ensure that their family's power stayed within their family. As disgusting and as unhealthy as it is, that's how they thought. And also, I guess if you want to equate it to anything modern TV-wise, if you've ever seen Game of Thrones, the exact same concept. I've never seen it because honestly I don't want to see all that, but that's another example. The crown prince himself does seem to have a bit of a humorous side to him, since I did find it funny when, as it turns out, he was doing the smart thing, which is trying to see his possible bride's true character whenever he's not around, because of course, they would act totally different and extremely formal if he was around. But also the fact that he had brought Yukiya with him, for just in case they were found out, he could literally push him and make him be the decoy while he escaped. Although to his credit, if I'm correct, he did send Sumio to go get him. Unless either he had told Sumio to wait on the sidelines beforehand, or Sumio decided to do it on his own, and then decided to step in when he thought they had gone far enough with Yukiya. But either way, it was nice that Sumio stepped in. And that's probably going to be answered either in the next few episodes, or if I ever end up reading the book. But I'm curious to know as to why transforming in front of others isn't allowed, why Yukiya was told he shouldn't lord it around in his feather robes or shape-shifting in any way, and why feather robes are not allowed in court. Why such formality? The vast majority of them are ravens. What's the issue with him showing that he's a raven and then being around them? And it also reminded me of the similar exploitative ways that the rich people in the Korean drama series Squid Game were toward all those people that were in heavy debt, and knowing that they would be desperate enough to want to clear their debts, that they could be enticed by money into entering these games, at first not knowing what they're in for, and then after knowing what they're in for, being allowed the choice to either leave or stay by majority vote, and then even after that, knowing that they would go back home, see how terrible their lives still are, and still be desperate enough that although they know there's an extremely high chance that they could die if they go back into these games, they go back into these games in hopes of winning the money. Overall, I really like this episode, since we got to see more of the prince, we got to see Yukiya actually doing his job for the very first time, and we got to know a little bit more about what goes on in the Cherry Blossom Hall with the consorts. I'm also curious to know who's the assassin that's among the consorts, because I don't know why, but as of right now, my guess, which is probably the most wild guess that I could come up with, is Asevi's lady in waiting. I just feel like maybe it could be her. And speaking of Asevi, I know it probably would be very surprising and shocking to see somebody transform from a raven back into a human. But again, if it's such a common thing that a lot of these people are ravens and they can turn back to being humans, why was she so shocked? Was she that extremely sheltered? Because I feel like regardless of the fact that she's a second daughter and she wasn't initially the one meant to come to the palace, I feel at the very least some education should have been given. Because there is a concept of the heir and the spare. So if anything were to happen to the heir, the spare is the backup. So they could have at least taught Asevi a lot of things like proper etiquette and also maybe showing her somebody transforming from a raven back to a human or from a human to a raven so that she wouldn't seem so surprised and show the other women there that she has such a weak result. That was enough to shock her. Although even the princess cousin said that today was a lot for her as well. And she didn't necessarily seem to be judging her for her reaction, but since the other one did, I'm assuming the others will as well later on. Now having said all that, I can't wait to see what happens in the next episode.